go. Yep. Now we're good. All right, I'll take my Prism screen down. And so this time I am joined by Hannah. I am joined by my brother Joe. Nathan from the Everything Keys. He might be popping in. He might not. He's still stuck working right now. Doug from Canada. I haven't heard from in a couple of weeks. Doug, if you're out there, you're listening, you see this or something, get a hold of me. I don't know if you're still having internet and computer issues or not, but we'd love to have you. That would be great. So what we were going to do is I have a presentation that was made by a guy named David Jones a long time ago. And right now, my computer's just going crazy. I don't know if that's coming through or not. But
I can hear you fine.
Okay. Yeah, my computer. All of a sudden, my computer decided to run a lot of stuff and get the cooler going like crazy too. So, anyways, this guy he was going all around the country. He said that he had been booked on all of these different dates all over the place to talk about Mount Rushmore. And I watched so many presentations because from the time that I picked this a couple of months ago, I had picked one that was produced by some kind of a travel entity that does videos for social media. And I thought, well, maybe I can get away with it under fair use or something. Well, let's see. And then I thought, well, maybe I won't, and I can just do the live stream and publish it on BitChute and Odyssey, and maybe it won't fly on YouTube. But I tried to publish it privately just so that everybody else could take a look at it. And this entity crashed that publication within 5 minutes. And I thought, this is just not going to be any good. So I found this presentation by this guy, David Jones. So a lot of us, we had already started looking at the one, the older one, and making some notes on that. But then I had to change it kind of late in the game. And here's one of the problems. It's going to be like that. It's going to be very difficult for me to find propaganda because of, for one thing, I've mentioned this before to people, there is this entity called Periscope Film, they are a private entity, and they have been buying up unbelievable numbers of government propaganda films, like the old war propaganda films, the old industry propaganda films, just tons of stuff that was all paid for by taxpayers. The government had produced by a number of different organizations, sometimes in conjunction with other organizations, private business, industry. And the story is, well, the government just decided they couldn't keep it all. Because, I mean, they don't have any space after all, right? And they were just going to burn it all. They were going to destroy it all. But luckily for us, Periscope Film, a private entity, came along and bought up all of that stuff. So now a private entity has the rights to all of that. So I don't even know how fair use, which, by the way, fair use is a joke on YouTube. I've seen tons of people use content under fair use and basically claim it right from the start. Claim it in audio. They've put disclaimers on the screen. This is fair use. I'm critiquing this. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Because they'll just put a copyright strike on it, slam it down, and who knows how long it would take for you to then, put in your complaint or whatever you got to do, beg to the gods of YouTube to have them take a look and decide that, yeah, well, after all, it is fair use. So it's really tricky. That's why we're going with this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start playing this presentation, and I'm going to skip it forward just a little bit because part of it's just him giving his background and all that. And for anybody who is joining me here on Skype, you can go ahead and, if you want to make any point in there, let me know. If not, I'll roll it through until I have points to make, then I'll stop it and make mine. So, here we go. Let's see.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dave Jones, and I've been here a few times in the past. I am just a little bit of by way of introduction. I'm not a teacher, and I'm not an author. I'm just a guy that likes history. I do come from a family of teachers, however, and I think that might be where I came up with the idea of turning my interest in history into these presentations. And so I speak all over the place. Let's see, in 2014 I did 89 presentations, and I'm on pace to exceed that probably by a pretty good margin this year. So I'm just speak all over the place, mostly in the Twin Cities, but do get outstayed a little bit. And so I had a copy of my flyer available when you came in, and if any of you
I killed my mic too. I'm sorry. Hannah, were you seeing the video when I started sharing it?
I saw it, but I couldn't hear anything until just now, until you turned it back on.
You could not hear it. All right. Because I'm going to have to kill my mic when I do this. So we will try it again. Sorry about that. I will try this again. Bring that up. All right. Can you see it?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
I can. Let me try playing it again.
are connected to or familiar with groups that use guest speakers, I always appreciate if you pass my information along.
So, can you do something
my topic
on your
today,
end?
of course, is the carving of Mount Rushmore.
On YouTube can hear it.
I have it's the carving of an icon, I call it. And I'm going to talk about that tagline in just a second. So, let's see, Donna, maybe we could flip the lights down there. Thank you. So, of course, this is the South Dakota map, and Mount Rushmore. We'll just wait till the lights get down there. There we go. All right. So the map of South Dakota, and Mount Rushmore sits in the Black Hills, which are in the southwest corner of the state. That's where Mount Rushmore is.
All right, Hannah, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. Did you hear the video this time?
No.
Okay, then I think it's something on your end. Because the guys in chat can hear the video.
Okay.
And I don't have anything set like restricting you on my end. So can you check your controls to make sure that audio is coming through from screen share? I'm going to double check my screen sharing. I'm going to actually, I'm going to stop the screen sharing and I will double check that I haven't done anything wrong. Well, let me see here real quick. Actually, we're good on my end on one thing, and then I will just... Sorry, folks, but we definitely got to have everybody in the group hearing this. So just 1 minute. All right. Sorry, it was my fault. I did not share computer sound. Jeez.
Okay.
All right, now we're
like
good.
Everything looks good on my end. Okay.
Yeah, everybody heard because they're hearing it through my software, but you didn't hear. All right, here we go. I might back it up just a little bit. Let's see.
Now, I called this carving of an icon.
All right, cool.
And before I get too far into the story, I just want to address that not everyone views Mount Rushmore as an icon. Now, when I think of what is an icon, it is something that is, first of all, it's very recognizable, okay? And Mount Rushmore, even if you've never been there, you see a picture of it and you immediately know what it is. It's also something, an icon stands for something, and Mount Rushmore, you could kind of argue that it stands for the first 150 years of our country's history. So, but not everybody views it quite in that same light. There is a group of people that view Mount Rushmore as a mutilation. And those are the folks that say, nature made this beautiful mountain, and what did we do? We went up there and we carved it to pieces and put something man-made up there. Then there are the folks that say Mount Rushmore is a desecration. And I want to tell you the story behind this. That's related to a dispute over the land on which Mount Rushmore sits. So I want to tell you that story before we get into the carving. First of all, there was a tribe in this area called the Lakota Sioux, and what was happening back in the 1800s, the white man was moving westward, and they were encountering this tribe, and it was a very turbulent time. A lot of battles and so forth. So in order to try to get the peace for the area, the federal government sent negotiators out to this area, and they negotiated a treaty in 1868 called the Treaty of Fort Laramie. And what that did was it granted a big chunk of land. It wasn't just the Black Hills, it was bigger than that. And it granted the land to that tribe for eternity. Well, 6 years later, gold is discovered in the Black Hills. So that turned into a good old-fashioned gold rush. People flooding into the area seeking their fortune. So a couple of years after that, the government sent negotiators back here, and they approached the tribe about the idea of renegotiating the treaty. The tribe said, no, we like the treaty just the way it is. We don't want to renegotiate. So then in 1877, the Supreme Court, in 1877, the Congress of the United States passed a bill that essentially just took the land back. And that started this land dispute. That land dispute continued for a long time, and it was more than 100 years later, in fact it was 1980, when the Supreme Court issued a ruling on a case that had been brought before it that said that act of 1877 was illegal and unconstitutional.
Okay, real quick, because this is important. Let me stop sharing. Do I need to stop sharing, or Hannah, can you see and hear back on the Skype screen? Do I have to stop sharing? Or are you good?
I don't think so. I'm
okay,
fine.
Good.
Yeah.
Cool.
You're fine.
Okay, so I just wanted to actually bring this up, not only because of whatever politics, but here's the interesting thing about all of this. Now, the actual treaty itself, typical U.S. treaties, I guess, the language is actually not all that clear, okay, for anybody who's looked at this. This is technically, I don't know if it's my browser, because I'm looking at it on my phone on the, the Safari browser. It keeps wanting to give me the this n.m.wikipedia. Is that like, I don't think that's a .uk. Anyways, really interesting thing about this is that the U.S. government built in these caveats to that treaty, by the way. There were like serious caveats to it, like, yeah, you guys can have this much land, like, or really not have, but you will have, you'll have dominion over it. You may do this, that, or the other with it. And there were caveats in there like, as long as the buffalo are roaming in sufficient number to justify you having control over this land. I mean, there was seriously that whole, the text of that treaty, it's full of that. Now, where this gets interesting is because, like, anybody who maybe even does a YouTube search on this, Mount Rushmore, and maybe you can punch in something like controversy, you will get probably a TED talk or a TED ed or something like that, where they do those stupid animations and they talk about propaganda. They do this propaganda, same thing, like the U.S. government reneging on a treaty and so on and so forth. And they really hammer home how much of a desecration this is supposed to be for the Sioux and all of that, you know? And here's what's worrying to me, that this hue and this cry about how wrong that the Sioux, the Lakota Sioux, have been by the government, which may or may not be true, and that's completely beside the point, but it's getting like louder and louder and louder and louder. And what amazes me is it seems like they really are taking serious strides with Mount Rushmore, like they are with so many other bits and pieces of evidence of the old world. And I wouldn't be surprised. I would not be surprised if in 10 years they had come very close to passing some legislation regarding demolishing Mount Rushmore. Because something like Mount Rushmore is just a giant piece of evidence that people can examine. People can examine the official story like we're doing right here. And they can decide, does this seem like it adds up or not? Consider it for 1 second. Mount Rushmore is arguably the most impressive, largest, most detailed, beautiful. Those faces, whoever they are, they were carved to just exquisite perfection. It's beautiful work in the world, from a country that was a very young country. And they say that this Borglum, he took guys who were miners with almost no experience using pneumatic powered jackhammers, free hanging off the side of this mountain, dynamite, jackhammers, and rock drills, and that they carved this thing in 13 years, and they didn't even work all 13 years. Just putting that out there. Pretty crazy, as far as I'm concerned. So I'll go back to the film here.
However, Part B of the ruling was not that the land should be given back. Part B of the ruling was the tribe was entitled to compensation for the land. Yeah, you could kind of draw the comparison or analogy of if you own a piece of land and they want to build a freeway through your land, you receive compensation. It's eminent domain. It was kind of that concept. So then you say, well, how much would the land have been worth? So there were some calculations done. What was the land worth in 1877? And then you account for interest, inflation over time. Add in the value of gold and other minerals that had been removed from the Black Hills, and a figure of $105 million was reached. Now, the tribe refused the money. We don't want the money. We want our land back. So then this land dispute just continued, and that's exactly where it sits today. The money, I've read a couple of different figures about if the tribe were to ever step up today and say, we want the money, it would be, I've read a couple of different figures, but somewhere between $300 and $500 million today. They continue to refuse to accept the money. Now, there's another side story to this story, and that was in 2011. 19 members of this tribe filed a lawsuit requesting their portion of the money. And a different court, it wasn't the Supreme Court, a different court threw the lawsuit out saying the money was given to your tribe, not the individuals in the tribe, but to the tribe. So far, the tribes refused to accept the money. Until the tribe accepts the money, it's not up to the court to answer the questions of who's in the tribe and who's not, because we have those types of questions. And also, how will the money be used, or if it's to be distributed within the tribe, then what portion should each person receive? The court can't act on those things, so they threw the lawsuit out, and that's where it sits today.
Oh man, don't you tell me for a second that whoever it is that are the official representatives, leaders of the Lakota Sioux tribe are not being bought out, paid off, under the table to keep rejecting that money and acting noble, telling everybody, no, it's about the principle. It's about the principle. Bullshit. I'm not buying.
Maybe it was all set up
I'm
from
not
the beginning.
buying what you're selling. You know what? A lot of these Lakota Sioux people, I mean, look, I'm not saying what they have, and I know they all get checks. Like, everybody who lives on a reservation that's actually officially an Indian, like in the country, gets a check, like every month. But that's not for me to judge here and now. What I'm saying is, those people probably would really like that money. And because this can be used as leverage, marching towards what I just mentioned about the possibility of them just tearing down all this evidence of the old world, they need to keep alive this idea that we're dealing with a very noble tribe. They don't want the money. They want their piece of land in South Dakota. Come on, you just have to be a child to believe that official story, that's really the way it's going. And this is not to in any way impugn the character of these people, these Lakota Sioux. It's not. I'm not even saying anything like that. What I'm saying is that people, if you were part of a group of people that were looking to get some serious pay dirt out of something like this, if somebody could park their giant statue in your backyard, you'd be like, here it is. All right, let's do it. I'm good. I'm good with that. I can look the other way. I can drive around it. Hey, they're probably making good money off tourism too. This is not a bad thing for them. So obviously I would say, and this is not just the Lakota Sioux, this is many, many occurrences of things like this happening on quote unquote tribal territory, or territory that probably wasn't or was in dispute, that they made tribal territory at some point in time because some bit of evidence was dug up, and those, whoever it was, the Indians that were on that land, I believe, in almost every case, their leaders were paid off to make a stink about it, to make sure that things could... This happened with Kennewick Man. The same thing happened with Kennewick Man.
You've heard of the Buell woman, John. Same situation, but less famous in
Buell?
Idaho. It's called the Buell woman.
Tell
She
us
was
about that.
found... I'm sure you might have heard of it. Same situation, though. Covered it up. It's not as famous as the Kennewick Man, but it was hush-hush. Someone with Aryan-looking features was found in Buell, Idaho.
Yeah, so this happens all over the place. And the funny thing is, here's what tends to happen, and then I'll move forward with the video because we got some interesting things to get to. What tends to happen is this. Either you get this situation like with the Lakota Sioux where none of those people are being helped monetarily in any way, even though they would. The particulars of that treaty would, if you split that, and forget about splitting it. You don't have to put it in their bank accounts. Build them playgrounds, build them, civic, something other than a casino, and give them, a higher standard of life with that money. And a lot of things can be done with that amount of money. That's a huge amount of money. But they're not. They're holding out like it's some kind of, it's our spirits are connected. You can't put a price on the connection of our spirits. And this always happens. It's either Red Indian land, or it's federal or state park. Holy shit. Who out there has looked at a map of federal and state parks? Do you guys realize how extensive the federal and state park systems are? They're they're pretty ridiculous. So that, I mean, this is what tends to happen. You know, it's they get something political in there, because who can argue with Indians? Really, in our culture, who can? I mean, if it was in, if a bunch of us, you know, whatever, white people, Germans, whoever, whatever ethnicity other than, you know, some, but bought a big hunk of land, it was ours. We bought it. We paid for it. We got a deed. And something was found or whatever. Trust me, the government would be saying eminent domain, eminent domain, eminent domain. What, you don't have any ancestral link to this? You don't have any religious claims on this? It's not, you know. Anyways, I'll get back to that. But it is hypocrisy, and I think it works really well in the favor of the people who want to destroy things like this, because it doesn't fit their narrative. And this one really doesn't, because it's really big. All right, get back to the movie.
So that's the story behind the land dispute that is continuing today. So now you think about this monument up on this mountain, and you want to say, how did this come about? Where did this idea come from? You have to go back to the 1920s. There was a man named Don Robinson living in South Dakota. He was actually the state historian. And he was trying to think of things, what can we do here in South Dakota to stimulate the economy? His idea was tourism. What can we do to entice people to come to South Dakota, spend their money, and it'll help the economy of the state? So he was trying to think of creative ideas, and he read a newspaper article in 1923 about something that was happening down in Georgia at a place called Stone Mountain. Stone Mountain has sort of a flat face on it, and a group of people in Georgia were carving a memorial to the Confederacy on the side of this mountain. And Don Robinson thought, hey, we've got some beautiful mountains here in South Dakota. What if we were to do something similar, and maybe people would come to visit? His idea was to do something that represented the westward expansion of the country. So he was thinking of Western figures like Lewis and Clark, Buffalo Bill Cody. So after he thought about this for a while, he wrote a letter in August of 1924 to a man named Gutzon Borglum, who was in charge of the carving, the sculptor that was working on the carving down in Georgia. And he said to Borglum, would you be willing to come to South Dakota and talk to us about this idea that I have? And folks, that's where the idea started from. So today, we have this thing called the Mt Rushmore National Memorial. That is the official name of the four heads. There is a mountain named Mt Rushmore, but
Okay, folks, I want you to see something. It's going to be part of my... Okay, let's see. Now, remember, this is part of the official story of Gutzon Borglum doing this sculpture of Rushmore. They say that he was working on this stone mountain, which Stone Mountain is not even like Rushmore. It's not even like Rushmore. Stone Mountain is a relief, okay? Rushmore is like, that's just about their full heads of these four men, whoever they are. Stone Mountain is literally just sort of a relief. Like, it's just dug in, okay? And there are a few figures that are in relief on it. And listen, this is my opinion, so whoever's a Georgian, or you're a patriotic, or you're a Georgian-loving Georgian, or whatever, I'm sorry, but it looks like shit. This Stone Mountain is one of the ugliest rock carvings I've ever seen in my life. Now, that being said, I do want to bring to your attention that even Stone Mountain, as it stands today, let me see if I can get a full picture of this on the screen too. because I know I'm in my little small viewer here, and I'm gonna see if I can get me, a big. I'll open it in my new tab. That's as big as they're gonna get it without me blowing it up. So yeah, I'll blow up the screen a little bit so everybody can see this stone mountain. Yeah, and it's gonna get pixely. You see that okay, Hannah? You have to turn your mic back on. So let's see. This essentially, what you're seeing here.
Sorry, yeah, I can see it.
That's okay, thank you. So this is basically what they say that Gutzon Borglum was working on when he got called by this Don Robinson, who was like the state historian. So that's a little weird, like the state historian is coming up with these grand plans to increase tourism. I would think that would be like under some other job description. But anyways, now, if you go back, even not that many years, I want to say if you go back just a few decades, and you look at the pictures of this just a few decades ago, it looked a lot different than it even looks today, because they have, over time, paid a number of professional rock sculptors to come and continue trying to sculpt this thing, which I just gotta tell you is ugly as... I don't have the words. I really do. I don't like this. This is the worst thing ever. But they say that he was carving this. And that literally... This is the best thing. This is the best part. They say he was carving this. They say he was making money, getting paid from like the Daughters of the Confederacy or something, which by the way is some shady like mystery group who apparently is paid for more sculptures of Confederate heroes than you can even imagine in all these states, mostly east of the Mississippi, northern states, southern states. It's insane. So they say that's who is paying him to do this. And he goes out like on a drop of a hat. He goes out to South Dakota to meet with this Don Robinson to find out about sculpting a mountain. They don't even have it picked out. Now, keep in mind, for anybody who's never been to the Black Hills, and I'll put my Skype screen back on so we can see Hannah. Now, for anybody who's never been to the Black Hills, and I've been to the Black Hills, Hannah, have you been to the Black Hills?
No, I have not.
Black Hills, okay, for one thing, if you get out Google Earth and you start zooming in on South Dakota and the west end of South Dakota, you'll notice, like, for one thing, the Black Hills looks like an island. Because South Dakota is just basically like soft rolling hills, a lot of prairie, meadow, not a lot of trees. Like once you get across the Mississippi into Iowa, you don't see a ton of trees from there till you get to the Black Hills. It's like an island. Okay? Not only trees, but granite. There is so many, like just all those hills are granite hills. They are, they're uneven. I almost said rocky. But so now he's going to go out there sight unseen to talk to this Don Robinson. This Don Robinson tells him, well, we're not even sure where we want to put it because we're not sure about the scouting. I don't know if this David Jones gets into the scouting aspect of it or not. But he says that Don Robinson had this idea to have like full-sized statues carved out of these. There are these rocks there that are basically like, they're like cylindrical, like big rough pillars. They call the needles. And that I would have thought would have been really, really complicated had this actually happened when they said, which I don't believe. And they say that somehow this Don Robinson wants to put like Wild West characters on there, like Buffalo Bill and these others. And that not only is Gutzon Borglum currently working on a sculpture that he's been paid to a certain amount to produce for this big organization that obviously has tons of money. Okay, so the Daughters of the American Revolution, or these might have been the Daughters of the Confederacy, They had a shitload of money. How do I know that? I know that because, as the story goes, they have paid for more monuments and statues that you wouldn't believe. If you want to see amazing statues, you go and look at all the statues that were erected through these Daughters of the Confederacy or whatever. Amazing. Okay, so obviously they're just loaded, according to the story. They're loaded. So they've got all the money in the world to keep paying Gutzon Borglum. And they're like, yeah, you know, a lot of people talk about him like, oh, he wasn't so good with money and he always had to juggle in this and that and the other. Well, you know what? If he would have stuck with them, not only would he have kept getting paid for Stone Mountain in Georgia, they would have gave him more work, I'm sure of it, if the story is indeed true. And I don't think a lick of it's true. But we'll continue with David Jones.
I was going to say real quick.
Yeah.
I found out he was Danish, which is interesting. I don't know how that fits into it, but
Borglum?
Yeah, or at least that's what the History Channel says. I was looking through it. I was like,
that's right. They call him a Danish sculptor.
Yeah.
That's right.
Whatever, however that fits in, but
I don't know. Who knows? But it's, you know what?
Recently.
It's worth noting. I'm German. It's worth noting. Let's see. You know what? That's funny because his name actually sounds almost Swedish, but you know, it's in the same area.
Yeah.
So, anyways, yeah, I'll get back to the presentation.
When we obviously talk about Mount Rushmore, usually we're just talking about the four heads. They didn't actually start carving until 1927, and it took 14 years till they finished, till they stopped, I should say. The cost was just under $1 million, and more than 80% of it came from the federal government. 450,000 tons of rock were removed from the mountain, and the faces are 60 feet tall, which would be the scale of a man who is 460 feet tall. And today, more than 2 million people a year visit Mount Rushmore. Those are the kinds of things that fascinate me. This guy back in the 1920s had this idea to stimulate tourism, and look what it turned into. I just think that's a remarkable part of this story. He was right. Now, before I have one more thing to kind of get into before I talk about the carving of Mount Rushmore, and I want to talk about this place called Crazy Horse. I get asked about this a lot, so I just sort of want to talk about it up front, and then we'll get back to talking about Mount Rushmore. But Crazy Horse Memorial it's a completely separate project. The only connection to Mount Rushmore is that the guy that started this worked on Mount Rushmore for 2 months.
Yeah, real quick. The guy who started it worked on Mount Rushmore for 2 months. And we need to consider the Cinderella story that Mount Rushmore is and how beautiful the work is. People need to really consider how beautiful the work is. I don't care who these guys were. I certainly don't think they were Washington, Jefferson, Roosevelt, and Lincoln. But no matter who they were, it's beautiful, beautiful work. Right? And they say that guy worked on it for 2 years as like the assistant to Gutzon Borglum. And then he decides to take this private contract with these other Indians. I don't know if they might have been more Lakota. And he spends forever. They say literally, and I'm going to bring this up, but you should still be able to hear me. They literally said that this was a huge mountain that, as you can trace my mouse, goes over forward from the head and like drops basically right here. They say that he spent most of his time over decades and decades just going up there setting dynamite and blowing all these areas out with dynamite. That he would literally walk up this entire mountain every day, set dynamite, blow up rock, clear rock, and that's what he mostly spent his time doing. They say the face here was actually just carved quasi-recently. Same with the arm. Okay, now here comes John's opinion. Take it for however much it's worth, okay? John's opinion was that they actually did have this mountain that was like this. Somebody never finished it. Or they meant to have a face, and a certain arm there. This tunnel was there for some purpose, reason, I don't know. And similar to Gutzon Borglum, this guy who had to do with this Crazy Horse Memorial, what he did was he actually sculpted the scale model down here. That was his job. He sculpted the scale model. And he might have actually done a lot of work up and around here too. I don't know. I have seen film of them supposedly blowing part of the face away here and there. It all looks a little weird to me. It all looks a little strange to me. So this whole Crazy Horse Memorial, a little weird, kind of dubious. So I'll get back to this.
Before he was fired. So a few years later, he went off and on some Indian land in the area, he is carving this. You can see the sculpture and you can see the resemblance in the background. Chief Crazy Horse, and they're using, it's on Indian land and they're using private funds to carve this. If this is ever finished, it will be far larger than Mount Rushmore. But the man that started this, he began in 1948. Now he died more than 30 years ago, so it's now his children and his grandchildren that are working on Crazy Horse. At the pace they're going, they have decades to go. So, I include this just because I get asked about it, but it's people don't sometimes understand that it's a separate project. Now, if you go visit Crazy Horse, they will tell you that with pride that they are using private funding, whereas of course Mount Rushmore was mostly federal government funding, and that you have to hand it to them. But on the other hand, you want to say the only reason not the only reason, but one of the major reasons you have people come visit yours is because they came to see Mount Rushmore. And then while they were there, they said, let's take a half a day and go visit Crazy Horse. So it just separate projects, and I just wanted to sort of touch on that before we got into it. But now we're going to talk about Mount Rushmore. We've got the four heads of the presidents. From left to right, you have George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Teddy Roosevelt, and Abraham Lincoln. So, as I go through this story, here's my outline so you can follow along. I'll start by talking about that man, Gutzon Borglum, the sculptor. Then we'll talk about the 14-year period when they were actually working on the mountain. Part 3 is the finishing, and as I will explain, technically speaking, Mount Rushmore was never finished. So maybe I should more appropriately call this the ending of the carving. And then part 3 is what's happening on the mountain today. So we'll get started with part 1, and this guy by the name of Gutzon Borglum. Before he was hired to carve Mount Rushmore, he was already pretty well known around the country and even in some, Europe and so forth as a sculptor, as an artist. And he always admired Abraham Lincoln for some reason. And I think he actually carved or sculpted a bust of Abraham Lincoln that sits inside the U.S. Capitol. To see it, you have to take a tour and go inside the Capitol, and then you can walk by this great big bust of Lincoln, and he sculpted that. And then there's another pretty famous statue of Lincoln that sits outside of the City Hall in Newark, New Jersey, and he sculpted that. He did not sculpt the Lincoln Memorial, although he competed for it and was not selected and was bitter about it the rest of his life. He would criticize the Lincoln Memorial. But to show his admiration for Lincoln, he named his son Lincoln Borglum. Now, the boy's name was James Lincoln Borglum, but he went by Lincoln Borglum his whole life. And Borglum was a complicated guy, but I also think you have to admit that he was a genius. At least I think it's genius to take this sculpture and translate that up on a mountain and have it turn out the way it did. I think that's remarkable, and I think you have to admit that he's a genius. But like you sort of see frequently with people that are geniuses, they have complicated personalities. When he would get up in front of an audience and talk, people would be inspired by him. They would want to roll up their sleeves and help the effort. What can I do? Tell me what you need done. This is the best thing I've heard, best idea, I want to help you. They would want to follow him. But then if you actually worked with him, he was very tough to work with. People thought he was controlling and he was a bully. And so you had this kind of Jekyll and Hyde personality going on. If you didn't work with him, you thought he was the greatest guy ever. If you worked with him, you thought he was a jerk. So, it seems like Borglum was never happy unless things were just in like a boiling over, because anytime things smoothed out where they had enough money and they were making progress on this project, he would do something or say something to make everybody mad at him. And it seems like it was never, he could never just let it go. Like, we're making progress, we're getting this done, and he would throw things up in the air. And there was a group of people that worked more in an administrative role on the mountain, handled the money and so forth, and he did battle with that group of people all the time. It was just constant. And so frequently that group of people came close and many times to saying, I can't work with this man. He's just completely irrational. Now, one of the things that Borglum had in his life is somehow he was able to cultivate relationships with U.S. presidents, to the point where he could write to the White House and say, I will be in Washington next month. Could I get an appointment with the president? And he would be granted that. He could go meet with the president. But almost without fail, time and again, he would do something or eventually irritate the president to such a degree that the president would say, if he writes to us again, forget it, I'm not meeting with him anymore. So he'd burn these bridges. Now, money was a big part of this story, and Borglum's relationship with money got in the way of this project. In his personal life, he lived beyond his means. He owned property in multiple states, and a lot of times those properties were either in foreclosure or close to foreclosure. As an artist, he was sort of used to, you would sell some kind of a piece of art and get a big payday, and then you'd go for a long time without any income, and then you'd make another sale and you get this big payday. And his attitude, it seems like, was the money will come. I'm just going to live my life the way I want to live, and the money will show up. So that was his personal relationship with money, but when it came to this project, it carried over, because what he would do is he would tell people that there were people that had listened to him and wanted to roll up their sleeves and help him raise money, and he would say, don't worry about it. I have a lot of wealthy friends, and they are going to show up with their checkbooks open, and they will want to support this project. Don't worry about it. So people would hear that and say, oh, well, okay, I guess I don't need to help. Even though I want to, I guess I don't need to. He says he doesn't need the help.
All right, hey, folks, does any of this sound even believable? Anybody? Does it sound like this is happening in reality? Look, and let me know in the chat. I'm monitoring chat in a couple places here. Absolutely, let me know. Because look, they talk about the guy, he's always got problems with money. He's always trying to take on side work. That's why he's at Rushmore. He had this sweet gig. I mean, a sweet gig. Look, I'm an artist. I love to make my living off of art or music. I'm a musician. I'm an artist. I don't usually get the time because I'm mostly doing this. And I'm not complaining. I love doing this. But here's the thing. So instead of contracting, doing, building jobs when if I could make it as an artist, and I could get like some kind of like conglomerate group like these Daughters of the Confederacy to finance me, like I'm sure they were financing him to the tune of like, live it large. And he's gonna run off like that? And then they're saying like, well, he was always trying to fit in the side projects and all that stuff. I don't know how large he was living, but they make him sound like he was just so frivolous with money, so irresponsible. Then then they're going to try to convince us that, well, even though he was so irresponsible with money and he had debts and he had houses that were in foreclosure and all this stuff, people are offering to finance this, raise his salary, and he's telling them, man, don't worry about it. The money will come. We're good. No, don't worry about it. No, don't worry about it. He's going to have presentations trying to sell people on the idea of Rushmore to raise money, and then he's going to tell people, don't worry about it. Nah, don't worry about it. Get out of here with that money. It's going to come. The magical money fairy is going to be here. My house is going to not be in foreclosure. I'm going to be good. Don't worry about it. Go on. This doesn't sound like a person who exists in reality to me. Because I have to do business. I have to do money transactions with people. And I know how it is to work for yourself, which is what he's doing. He's not working for an employer. He's a contractor. I have a lot of experience with this. When you're a contractor, you need money coming in. You need money coming in. Okay? And if you're going to sell people on these ideas, and you know, most contractors who aren't me, I try to never do this. Ever. But it happens. If they have a couple of different jobs lined up, you know, they try to work things to where they can get some done on this, some done on this, and all that happens all the time. Money. They need money. The reason that most contractors do that is because they overextend themselves and they have to get more money. So they start new jobs, and it's a really dangerous way to do it, but it's about money. Money, 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 money. And he's a contractor, but he's not worried about money. I'm going to do these presentations, get people excited, and then when they offer me money, I'm going to say, no, I don't need money. What are you talking about? So anyways, that leads me to one thing I did want to discuss before we go any further with this. And notice that I did name this Rushmore Part 1, because it's possible we might only cover about half of this. And then we'll cover Rushmore Part 2 later. Maybe on our next stream, maybe we'll just do it consecutively instead of, popping to something else. But these are important things, and here's one thing that's really important. I'm going to open up my my photos folder, and we are going to start with, let's see, I've got all of them in here. Okay. We're going to start with Jefferson. And I want everybody to bear with me. And Hannah, you can let me know. Because I should be sharing screen. Are you seeing Jefferson?
Yes.
All right. I'm going to roll through these a little bit. And I'm hoping that everybody has paid enough attention to Mount Rushmore. Or maybe you've just seen Mount Rushmore so many times that you really don't need me to keep bringing Rushmore up on the screen, even though I can open a second. Let me open up, you know what? Let me open up a second window. Just so you can see. We can do some comparisons here. Let me get you a good one. Because I've got a few different, I downloaded some really, really high-res images of Rushmore. Here we go. From, I think it was Library of Congress. And some of the things Library of Congress offers is just fantastic. Super, 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 super high-res TIFFs. And then, like some of you that are in the Facebook group, you'll know because I posted it. They'll have some pictures that are amazing evidence for us against the narrative, and you can't have it. You can't have a high-res image of it. You can't have it that's big enough to fill your screen. They give you a tiny little thumbnail, and that's it. And it's so pixely, you can never really pick out any good detail. And they basically give you the whole story like, well, if you want this, you got to come down to the Library of Congress, maybe fill out some forms or something, or fill out some forms online, and maybe they'll license it to you, but I don't know how strict all of that is. I'm sure I'm going to find out someday. It's ridiculous. Here is Rushmore, okay? And here are the faces of the 4 men that are on Rushmore. Now, let's just go, I'll tell you what. I got Jefferson up, but let me just fast forward a little bit here. And unfortunately, Mr. Washington is the last on the list. So here is a picture. These are all these paintings that I have up here. By the way, these are official portraits of who they say these men were, right? The fathers of our country, the fathers of democracy. These are them on the screen right now. They say that is George Washington. Folks, take a good look at that. That is an official painting. George Washington, 1732, 1799, portrait painted in 1783 by William Dunlap. Well, gosh, I guess he would know better than us what Washington looked like, right? I mean, he's 150 years behind us. I mean, he was literally closer to the life of Washington, that they say, than we were. But look at that painting real quick, one more time. Now look at this guy on Mount Rushmore. Does that painting look like that face on Mount Rushmore? And look, you know what? I can zoom this in if you want. Here's a zoomie. There's the face on Mount Rushmore. And here is the face painted in 1873 by Mr. Dunlap. They bear no resemblance. Try again. Look at, who's that guy? Who the is that guy? That is George Washington. That is George Washington. That is actually an official portrait of George Washington. Does that in any way, shape, or form resemble that? And we even got him in the same profile. Boom. Boom. Nothing? All right. How about this? There we go with the old hand in the shirt. Hey, that's the George Washington I'm used to seeing. Look at him as a dashing young man with girl hips. Hand in the shirt with the glove. All right, now, let's see here. Does he look like this guy? Because to me, I look at this guy here, and I'll just be honest with you. I don't know who this guy was. I don't. He could be the furthest thing from me ethnologically. Like, he could be, if he was alive today, he could be a raging tyrant against my people and all the people of the world. I don't know anything about whoever this guy was. But I look at him and I say, now that is a determined, hard, serious face. That is a man who looks distinguished. Whether he was or not, whoever this was, I look at that face, I say, that's a distinguished face. That, to me, looks like he might be a little teeny bit retarded, just in the eyes there. Okay? Just saying. While we could say he was young, he hadn't lost his baby fat. Look at that. Look at the chin. Look at the chin. Maybe he should grow a beard. But that one is the closest. Who's this guy? Who's this guy or girl? Is this Grandma Moses? I mean, what am I looking at here? Because this is an official painting of George Washington. That right there. And here. Now, a lot of people might be a lot more familiar with this one. I'm going to try to blow that up a little bit. Maybe. You might have seen this one, because this one kind of makes the rounds a little bit more than the others. However, take a look at the features. Take a look at the face profile, the jaw here. Take a look at the sunken mouth and the kind of hooky looking, maybe, you know, there's certain people, and it's not who you think I'm talking about, that are all along Northern Europe that have features just like this right here. And it's not who you might think I'm talking about. Look at this. That does not quite match. So,
and the eyebrow structure is completely different. He's got more broad eyes. The other paintings do not. They're more close together.
Look at that. Right. There. There. Absolutely. That bone structure looks quite different. Look at the brow on this one. The brow is very soft. It's not predominant. Very subtle. Go back here. And look at that. Now I know it's a different angle. And I can show you, different angles. That's not an issue. I can show you different angles. Let's see. I've got a few pictures of Rushmore here. Let's get some different angles here. Here's another angle. Okay, look. We'll try this angle. This apparently was a photo taken quite a long time ago, in fact. Look at that. And that. Now, I'm sorry, but I think that his nose on this painting, because this is, I would say, besides for that kid with the girl hips that looked a little bit retarded, no offense to anybody with special needs, but he looked a little bit off. In addition to him, this guy here, he looks pretty close, I would say, from all of them. But still, he still has the oddly segmented nose, not a hook nose. This is a very distinct feature in certain so-called Europeans. Okay? It's a very different kind of nose. Let me see. Yeah, nope, he doesn't quite have that same nose. Look at the brow from here. Look at the brow from here. Now, let me see this guy. I don't think he could make his brow do that if he tried. It's just not the same guy, folks. Now, I'm not saying that I'm not saying they wouldn't have had the good sense to come along and paint some pictures that looked like Rushmore. That's what I would think they would do, and I think they have. In fact, I think some of the most popular paintings that they say are Washington, are Jefferson, are Lincoln, were actually painted to resemble what you see on Rushmore, because Rushmore is very, very difficult to get rid of. You can get rid of a lot of things a lot easier than you can get rid of Rushmore. So let's do Jefferson. Give me 1 second. All right. This one right here, you see if I've got notes on this one, because I did write down all of the painters of these. Sorry. Okay. This is supposed to be Thomas Jefferson. Now, I've seen this painting a lot. I'm sure a lot of people actually have seen this painting. It's not, they're not really hiding this painting. So let's go back here. This is the Thomas Jefferson on Mount Rushmore. Notice the part in the hair. And the hair actually looks not only parted in sort of right in the middle there with relatively wavy bangs, and it's quite thick and long over here. This is not a guy with short hair. This is a guy with thick hair, a part in his hair that is a clear, distinct part in his hair. Let me go to, let me see if I can get you any other angles. That one's okay, but here we go. Maybe this one, huh? Here we go. We've got a guy that has a very straight nose, a little bit of a ball there at the end, somewhat upturned. I can't help but look, folks, let me tell you, I can't even imagine how brilliant the sculptors who really did do these were. The way that they crafted, designed, and envisioned the eyes, these are brilliant. I don't think this is something that happened on accident. And how do you do that? I will tell you from both an artist and a contractor's standpoint that when you're going to do something that you're not sure of, maybe hasn't been done before, and I've done a lot of jobs like that, what you're typically going to do is try a mock-up of some sort. It's the same thing with graphic arts. You'll try a thumbnail, a basic sketch, okay? I want to know how this Borglum tried the mock-up of these eyes before he did them. So how would he know that they would look so majestic and beautiful to actually hollow out these eyes and put granite columns in these eyes to act as gleams of the pupil? There's so many details to this that could be perused. But again, here is the so-called Jefferson on Rushmore. And let me go back to, that's supposed to be Jefferson. Now, the nose ain't too bad, but this old boy does not have a part in his hair. It's relatively thick here. The face, this face here is a pointy face. And you know people with pointy faces. No shame in that. I don't have a pointy face, but he has a pointy face. This guy here does not have a pointy face. Let me see if I can get get another angle or two on that. You see him right here? He does not have a pointy face. He does not have a pointy nose. This man here, his nose is not pointy. That's important. This man here, this painting, he has a different brow structure. The bone structure undergirding his brow than this man here. I'll move on before I start repeating myself. That right there, my friends, is supposed to be Thomas Jefferson. I'm not lying to you. That really is supposed to be Thomas. These are official paintings. These are paintings that you can find in museums and in official contexts. That's supposed to be Thomas Jefferson right there, folks. I don't even have to show you Rushmore right now for you to know that's not the guy on Rushmore. Who the F is that guy? Come on. All right. How about this? Who's that guy? Who's that guy? Because the nose just got infinitely pointier, and the nostrils are upturned now. So, look, folks, I know that every artist is a little bit different, but they can't be that different. And I know people change a little bit as they age, but they don't change that much. I've never seen somebody's nostrils go upturned in their old age. This guy is clearly far different, not only than the guy we saw on the mountain, except he's got a part in his hair now. Okay, so we've got a little bit of him that looks to be kind of the same. He's got a part in his hair in the middle. All right, now we're getting somewhere. And by the way, folks, I recently found out about something that just floored me. It floored me. And I don't have the name of it actually right now. I don't even think I put it, I saved it somewhere, but I know how to get back to it. I'm not going to do it right now. It is a prism. It is a little type of glass, prism that is a magnifier. It's 3 ways, okay? And what it does is, and these have been around forever, by the way. Forever. What you can do is you can actually just clamp them onto your space. If you're doing a sketch, and most artists, and I can vouch for this too, this is how it works. You will do a sketch or whatever, kind of small. As small as you can, that could fit on your lap or in a little easel in front of you, whatever. You're going to do a sketch of that subject, and then you're going to apply a grid to it. And you're going to scale that grid to whatever you're going to. This is how it works. So you would use this little object, and when you look into this object, this little triangular prism, you would see not only the subject in front of you, but you will see also the paper that you're drawing on at the same time. And so artists can and have been able to, for many, many centuries, been able to produce photorealistic paintings. So if they can do that, and these things are so easy to produce, I mean, I wish I could put a link up for these because I don't remember what they're called. I'm sorry. They were easy to get a hold of. They were easy to even produce if you had to produce one, because, let's say you wanted to do something like, I don't know, make a drawing or a painting of a U.S. president. You can make them photorealistic, but somehow nobody that. And here's this guy. He looks like an actor. I know. The nostrils aren't as flared, but still a little flared. Now he's got the butt crack undernose. I don't know what that's called. He's got a cleft. And no offense to anyone who's got the butt crack undernose, because everybody's got a little bit of a cleft. Looks a lot different than these other guys. Got some bangs going on like a playboy.
He looks like a totally different person.
He does. These four guys, and that's the one thing to keep in mind. Not only do they not look like this guy up here on the mountain, they don't even look like each other.
They're probably not. They're probably not.
Probably not. Now, this is photorealistic. This is beautiful. They probably used that device I'm talking about to do this. Whoever this model was. And I got to get one. They're so cool. They're so cool. But if I tried to do a search on it right now and I punched in, well, it would take forever. So let's just keep going through this. But trust me, they've existed. There's plenty of evidence to show that they've existed for a long time. That's how people can... You know, here's the thing. As an artist, you don't want to spend years and years and years of your time trying to figure out how to make your eye communicate with your hand to create something photorealistic. You want to spend years of your time developing technique, understanding of your mediums, understanding of paints, understanding of light and dark and all of that. And then you want to go beyond that and you want to learn, understand symbolism, metaphor, subtlety. That's what you want to do as an artist. You don't want to spend forever learning how to just make something photorealistic. That's insane. That's why they used these tools. Here's this other guy. Now, he actually looks like one of the guys we've seen already, doesn't he? Hey, take a close look at him, and let's go back real quick. That's not the same guy. That's not the same guy. That's not the same guy. What do you think? Maybe that guy? Well, just a second. Look at that guy. No.
That's the most famous one that I'm familiar with.
That's the one everybody knows, right? Yeah. Little bit of bangs going on there. Like the first guy with his hair all blown back, I'm like, I don't know who the hell that guy is. He looks like a Dutch merchant. This one's real famous. This is as famous as and I did not include the famous one of Washington because I figured everybody had seen it. It's the one where he's standing in a room, a very ethereal room, with his hand on a table with the documents next to it, and he's all dressed in black. That's literally like the Washington that I think they pulled the image or decided to use that image to put on the dollar bill. That's the image that looks the most like Rushmore. And in my opinion, it doesn't look that much like Rushmore. That guy on Rushmore doesn't, to me, look anything like most of these photos of Washington. I don't know what it is. If it's just the programming and how they're able to influence our minds as we're growing up in our formative years. They tell us something like, here's Mount Rushmore, and the people on it are George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Theodore Roosevelt, and Abraham Lincoln, and we just accept it without criticizing. Now, so there's TJ. Now, how about this dashing chap? Let's go here. I want to try to get you a decent perspective of this supposed Abraham Lincoln guy. What's the best view I've got of him? Here we go. How about this? This is a shot I think a lot of people are familiar with, you know. Okay, that guy right there, I can tell you without looking at any other pictures, this guy right here does not look like any pictures, photos, or anything else I've ever seen of Abraham Lincoln except for what? Maybe the little mole? That's about it. I'm going to prove it. Let's take a look. That is that's not a painting of Abraham Lincoln, folks.
Portrait.
That is supposed to be a photo. That's supposed to be a photo. Remember, by the time Abraham Lincoln was president, by the time Abraham Lincoln was a young man, they were supposed to have had, developed cameras, if we want to take their word for it. This is a photo. Look at this guy. Here's a photo. Big ears. I'm not one to talk. I don't have big ears. I have funny shaped ears. Now, here he is here. This guy, whoever he is, I'm not seeing the, man, I'm not seeing it. Do we see it in the chin a little bit? Do we see it? I'm not even seeing it in the cheek lines. Look at how high this guy's cheek lines are. Down here off the nose. How about this guy? These are very much ascending diagonal cheek lines. Same with the lines on the corner of the mouth. Go back here. You see that? There's nothing there. When you start looking close at this,
different.
The lips.
Look at the lips. They're absolutely different.
Let me do this one more time. Yeah, maybe. Because this one has a far more predominant upper lip. I was looking at the bottom of the lip first and I thought, well, both of them seem to have like a big full bottom lip. But not really. This one actually has a far more predominant round bottom lip. And it meets his chin very close. This one doesn't.
And these are more broad. They're a lot more broad.
Yeah, this one doesn't. And his chin is not as predominant. The Rushmore version. Okay, let's try another one. Well, we got Kramer from Seinfeld here. Look at this guy.
He doesn't even look like the previous photo, really.
Look at this guy. He just got up, rolled out of bed, and they said, "Can we get a photo, Mr. President, for President's Weekly?" Sure. Go ahead. You want to fix your hair, Mr. President? Nah. It'll be fine. So yeah, now I can get. It's really hard to get. This is one thing that's tough. If they show him in his right profile like this, it's really hard to get right profile because somebody would have to be taking the photo from one of these guys' heads. You understand? So I know that's a little bit unfair, but just take a look at this guy. Look at him. Look at the size of that honker. Okay? And he's got like no top lip. This guy's got a top lip. This guy's got quite a bit of space between his lip and his nose, too, by the way. The Rushmore sculpture? Yeah, I guess he's got a little bit of space between his lip and his nose, but this guy's got about 10 pounds of nose on him right there. Okay? And that's one of the things that sticks out to me so much. This one does not. The nose doesn't even come close to matching. And we haven't even got... I'm not even spending any real time on eye shape, which we could. That's a big... tell the shape of the eyes. The shape of people's eyes, they do vary quite a lot. The hair doesn't match. This guy, I'm not seeing it either, folks, really, with this guy. Yeah, the hair, I guess.
The nose is different because even in that, which is similar to the angle, the nose is different.
I think that's the same guy as in the last photo because remember, we're dealing with photos now. And it's going to be the same with Roosevelt. We're dealing with photos. Okay? So this guy definitely looks like the last guy. Now, it is kind of questionable I don't know who that guy is. But, so, okay.
Is that even Lincoln at all? Is any of it Lincoln?
Yeah.
Or any of the photos actually Lincoln?
Right. I don't know who this guy is. Who knows? Could have been some bum that they got a bunch of pictures. I don't know. Who's this guy? Who is this guy? Look at that guy. Look at that guy. He's looking all suave and half drunk. He don't look nothing like this guy. He doesn't look anything like that man. Look at this man. Nothing like this man. Now, what is somewhat disturbing to me, too, is they keep saying this guy, David Jones, he mentions multiple times how big a fan of Lincoln Gutzon Borglum was. And you would think that would be the closest. He would just have him, like, I mean, right on the money. And he certainly wouldn't try to fit him in as the last face on the frickin' mountain. If he just adored Abraham Lincoln, I would think he would have done a much better job of getting him to look like this crazy man. I don't know who this man is, but he looks a little crazy. How about that guy? Does the statue look like that guy? Because
Doesn't even look like the last photo.
he doesn't look like the last couple of photos. You telling me that guy is that guy? That guy right there is that guy? I think they superimposed those ears right there. You see those ears? See how they look all blurry as shit and the hair looks crazy? It doesn't look right. Because that guy's got big ass ears. Those ears, they look like they were digitally put in. I don't know why. Look, I ain't got answers here as to why they would do it, but they just don't look right, man. Man, he had some big ears. Like, I'm not trying to hack on him or nothing, but my God, was he like the great-great-great-granddaddy of Obama or something? Look at those ears. I'm just telling you, satellite dishes. What's that?
They say that Obama's related to the president.
That's
so.
because they saw his ears. And they said, oh man, we've got a dead ringer here. Those ears I don't even know if those are the same ears as those ears. I know, you're saying that's crazy. Yeah, is it? I don't even know if those are the same. This picture just looks a little bit weird. And then we're back here. So yeah, I mean, the ears look the same and all. I wish I could have seen hands in all of them. Here you got hands in this one. Maybe those are the same hands. You think this guy, now look, this old guy here in this photograph, he actually does look like an old version of this one, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, yeah, this guy here could actually be the same guy as a young man. Who is that guy? Because you see the slope in the nose and everything? This nose here is a little more pug, not as predominant and sloping. Look.
You know what they look like? They look like relatives. They look like they're possibly of the same family. Because they're... Yeah. I could be wrong.
Well, this guy lived across the hall. But yeah, I think that guy is the same as the last guy. This guy, I don't know. He's not that guy. Now, that guy might be the same as the first guy, and I'll tell you why. Because of the fat nose. See? The fat nose that has a dip towards the bridge. Well, this one doesn't have a dip towards the bridge, so I guess I'm eating my words now. Are the eyes the same? Look at those eyes.
I think those two are similar.
Those eyes are like pretty little brown eyes, right? Let's see. I'm not sure that those are even the same eyes. Those aren't the same eyes. This is not the same freaking guy. This is not the same guy. He's got that like psycho eyebrow droop or eyelid droop. It's not the same guy. They literally digitally put ears in him. What the hell's back here? Is this supposed to be the back of his hair back here? Did they not have any kind of hairstylists or combs or anything back then? Unbelievable. Like, how about this? Seriously, was this after he was shot? Like, no offense, I'm not trying to be coarse or anything, but look at this guy. Look at that fucking hair. Holy crap. Now, here's the one that really gets me, okay? We'll do this, and then I'll go back to the film, but these things have to be really closely examined. This is Teddy Roosevelt. Now, I say Teddy Roosevelt just because he was a president within just over a century. What is he? I don't know. But we'll call him Teddy Roosevelt. The guy on Mount Rushmore, I don't know who the heck he is, but look at this guy on Mount Rushmore. I'm going to zoom in because he got the crack back here. He got shoved way back in the corner. Okay, look at this guy here. Look at his nose. The way his nose is shaped. His eyebrows, the hair, look at the part in the hair. The part in the hair is actually just over the right eyebrow. The peak of the right eyebrow. Look at the mustache, the lip, the chin, okay? I want you to try to remember this really good. And then, there you go. Oh yeah, that's definitely the same guy right there, right? Definitely the same guy. How about that? Hey, wait a second. Do you think that guy on screen, if you tipped him over to his left about 35 degrees, would be that guy? I don't think so. Me personally, no. I don't think so. And look at this shaggy-ass mustache here. This is how he always wore his mustache, by the way. All shaggy like that, like a big old walrus. That's how he wore his mustache, okay? And folks, real quick, before we forget, where's the part in his hair? The part in the hair is over the middle of his left eyebrow. Let's go look here, because Gutzon Borglum was supposed to be friends with Roosevelt. Friends. Where's this guy's part? This guy's part is over the crest of the right eyebrow. This guy's part, it's right over the middle, if not the descending, of the left eyebrow. How about this guy? Same thing. I think this guy is the same guy we just saw, but he's not the guy on Mount Rushmore. Mustache, lip. Look at that lip. Look at that chin. Look at that lip. Look at that chin. This is a square lip. This is square lip and chin. Teddy Roosevelt did not have that same kind of face. His features were not the same as that. Look at that. Not the same. Okay? Pudgy, not defined. He looks in pain here. But we're not talking about the same guy. We're not talking about the same guy. How about this one? Hey, here's a good one because this is almost the same angle. Let's blow this up a little bit. That's really close to the same angle. Look at him. Get a good look at him. Look at how far that part is. I told you, that part is almost over the descending part of his left eyebrow. He never parted it over here. In case anybody thought, well, maybe the photos we see have been kind of flipped, like inverted. Why would they? But every single one? Because his part is always over there. Let's look at this one. Where's this part at? It's right here. It's over the right. It's over the crest of the right eyebrow.
That guy's got a very distinct face.
Look at those features.
Very
yes.
broad. Yeah.
Absolutely. Look at these features. The cartilage on his nose, the tip of his nose, does not descend in any way past the nostril. Look at this guy. Absolutely does. His nose is elongated. His mouth is downturned. His lip is not formidable. It's thin, downturned, pudgy ass. Anyways, look at this guy. That's an attractive looking fellow. Is he wearing glasses? Is he wearing spectacles? Were they added in? Were they there in the first place? Who knows? But I'm telling you, that face ain't that face. And there he is as a really, really young man. And I mean, by the time we get there, back into Grandma Moses, by the time we get here, I mean, honestly, in my opinion, there's just no contest. It's absolutely not there. So, all right. Let me minimize these, and we'll go back to a few more minutes of the movie here, or the presentation.
So nobody was working on raising the money. But then time would pass, and now either they ran out of money or they didn't have enough money, and then Borglum would be bitter. Why isn't anyone willing to help me? Am I the only one working on this? Am I the only one that cares if we get this done? That was kind of his attitude. You told us not to. Well, that was kind of the way he handled himself. Now I want to tell you the story of Stone Mountain. It's a big tourist attraction today in Georgia, but what you see if you go there, it really has nothing to do with Gutzon Borglum. Let me tell you the story of what happened. First of all, there was a group in Georgia that had the idea to carve this memorial. This group was the United Daughters of the Confederacy. Women whose fathers and grandfathers had fought in the Civil War on behalf of the Confederacy. And this group wanted to see a monument to the Confederacy. They were proud of their heritage. And they wanted nothing more than to see it commemorated on this mountain. Well, Borglum was a tough guy to deal with at Mount Rushmore, and he was a tough guy to deal with at Stone Mountain too. When he was hired there, it seemed like he did battle with everybody at every turn. You're going in the wrong direction, or you're not raising enough money, or you're trying to control me with the way the money is being used and so forth. And it was just getting to be a real problem, and the people that were in charge of the mountain, of Stone Mountain, were frustrated with him. Why isn't this getting done? It seems like he's never around. He would suddenly take off. He'd disappear. He'd go to Europe to sell a piece of art or something like that. Why is he not here? Well, so they're already frustrated and they feel like they're not making progress. Then in 1924, Borglum gets a letter from that man named Doane Robinson. The letter was written in August, and in September of 24, Borglum travels to South Dakota to meet with people to talk about this idea. Well, now for a second, I'd like to ask you to imagine yourself being a member of the United Daughters of the Confederacy. You're proud of your heritage. You want to see this thing done to honor your fathers and your grandfathers, and you're frustrated at this man who doesn't seem to be getting it done. And then, come to find out, where is he now? He has traveled to South Dakota to talk to some folks there about the idea of carving a memorial to the Union. That was the last straw. In the very early part of 25, he was fired. And when you read the story, it's almost like, you can't fire me, I quit. I mean, they were both sides were so angry at this that he just sort of said, I quit, and we're going to storm out the door. Now, the people in Georgia thought, well, he's created some models. We will just hire a new sculptor who will come in and work from Borglum's models and finish the work. But Borglum said, no. And on the way out the door, he took a hammer and destroyed the models. Ended up being charged with a destruction of property, and he had to flee the state of Georgia as a fugitive from justice. And to my knowledge, he never set foot in Georgia the rest of his life. So they did hire a new sculptor who tried with, didn't even have models to work from, and that person worked for a while, and then the whole thing just kind of fizzled and fell apart. But then it was a couple decades later that they started over, and they dynamited off what Borglum had started, and then what you see today was finished in 1972 or so. So it is a big tourist attraction today, but it has no connection now to Gutzon Borglum. So his idea, he goes to South Dakota and he speaks to these leaders in Rapid City, and he said, you're thinking small potatoes. This idea of westward expansion, that's for the birds. He said, you got to think big. And he used the term a shrine of democracy. And he proposed the idea of carving presidents. And not forget these Western figures. We want presidents and so forth. Well, he also on that trip talked about how, I'm working on this southern memorial in Georgia, and wouldn't it be nice if we did a northern memorial in South Dakota, as if somehow those two would complement each other or balance each other or something. Because remember, at that point, he had not yet been fired in Georgia. So he thought, I can do them both. Well, of course, then it wasn't too long till he didn't have the southern memorial to worry about anymore. And on that trip, he estimated that this project would cost $500,000 and take 6 years. And of course, it took more than twice that long and about twice that much money.
Okay, and that, again, We're slipping out of reality. That anyone who was an experienced artist, not only an experienced artist, sculptor who has sculpted into rock, who has sculpted into granite, he's already doing it right now. He's taking quite a long time to just do a relief. That Stone Mountain was just a relief. It wasn't like these. These are busts. I mean, the so-called Washington is a bust. Okay? These are serious sculptures, and you're telling me in reality, the guy who's always trying to get more money out of stuff is telling them, yeah, no sweat, 6 years, $500,000. Even in that economy, that's just not believable. What I'd like to do, real quick, your mic's off, Hannah. Turn your mic on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What were you saying?
I was just saying it's ridiculous because also it's mostly federal funding, right? Well, that's just taxpayer funded. That's all that is. So the taxpayers paid for it. And
Yeah.
I'm sure that they didn't have any say in it.
I'm sure they had
And
no
then-
say.
And
Yeah.
I'm sure the Native Americans don't take that into consideration when they, they brag about how their Indian project is funded by privately funded. But did any of us have any say when it was federally funded?
No.
I highly so.
None of us have any say over anything that's federal anything, but the thing is, here, let me do this. I've got one more point, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop this because technically it's about halfway through his presentation, and I want to bring up one more little thing because they're talking about his old work. They have mentioned his old work many times over, and I want to bring our attention to one other thing. Now, an artist's work, no matter what style the artist is working in, an artist's work, how they work with light and darkness, it may develop, but it's still, there's the fingerprints of this artist is on their work. If they like a rough look to their sculptures, they're almost always going to have this certain roughness. Not necessarily crappy, but they're going to have a certain texture they like and that they work well in. That's the way it is. And I've known enough artists today and compared with enough artists of yesterday to know that that is the case. Time after time. Yes, they can do something. If somebody says, I want something in this style, they will try to gear something towards that style if they're on commission. But everything we've heard about Borglum would make us believe that he did everything his way no matter what. Now, I want you to consider just how beautiful and sublime and smooth and wonderful these faces are. I'm going to go back down here a little bit. And look at that view right there. Okay, this is a very, very smooth, very pretty. Look at that nose. That does nothing. Anyways, that style. We have a style here in the artist who made these. Okay. Now, what I'd like to do is open up some sculptures, some other sculptures of Borglum, okay? Besides the Stone Mountain, and I don't think that the guys in Stone Mountain, I might have a picture of Stone Mountain here, a bigger one. I don't think that they look anything like what they say. This is supposed to be him. This is just horses, okay? So it's really hard to kind of gauge these bunch of horses. But anyways, yeah, that's supposed to be Borglum. And unfortunately, this is a different viewer. So let me see if... Here we go. This is supposed to be a sculpture Borglum did. Okay? I want you to look at this face and this collar. I want you to look at how this guy... If this is a sculpture of Borglum's, okay? And These are sculptures of Borglum's. Look at the smooth look of this man. This man, these faces, the hairlines. When we actually have, because this is supposed to be a man with like one of those old colonial ruffled shirts and jackets on. It's all quite crisp, smooth. Okay, and then we go back to this. This. And that's supposed to be the same artist. Is that right? How about this? Same thing. How about this? Look at the face. Look at the hair. Look how rough it is.
And that's iron. That's not stone, is it?
Yeah, that's a
So
bronze.
it's a totally different medium.
That's a bronze, and you can make your bronze, because when you make a bronze, you make a blank, and you're going to sculpt or carve your blank. You can make that blank as smooth and pretty and lifelike as you want, if that's what you prefer as a sculpture or a sculptor. And now you're working with stone, and the stone is calling the shots. And this stone is still smoother, prettier. I mean, beautiful work. I could literally see, as big as these are, because they say like the nose, 20 foot from tip to the top of the nose. 20 feet right here. And I could almost see a guy hanging off of these faces with a piece of sandpaper, just smoothing it out. They're so nicely done. So smooth. About this. This is supposed to be him making a clay sculpture that might be turned into a bronze bust of some dashingly handsome looking guy. But again, you see how rough his style was, if that was his style. If he wasn't just some sort of Freemason and liar and whatever he was. But look at this. Okay? Look at the features. They're not even clearly defined. Are you telling me that this guy that he sculpted right here had some, like, what did he do? Did his face just get stung by 30 bees? There's no smooth, nice definition to this. And it's not worn out by time. What's that?
He looks like he's in pain.
He does. And this sculpture is not worn by time or anything. This is a bronze. It was supposed to have been done within the last century. Same as this. I don't even see a comparison in the styles here, folks. How about this? Now, this is really famous. This is supposed to be by him. This is pixely. This is literally supposed to be by the same sculptor. This Gutzon Borglum, this Abraham Lincoln, which started out one place and then it got moved to some other place. That's supposed to be by him, but it's really hard to see how smooth that is. Let's see, there's that. Then there's that. Well, let's see. That doesn't quite look like the same guy to me. I mean, geez, the hair isn't the same, I'll tell you that. This guy actually combed his hair. How about this one? Okay, we can get a little bit... Still pixely. This particular sculpture, which I want to see really well, is so pixely. And again, looks rough. Now, this looks a lot like those photos we were seeing of a guy who was a little bit... His face was contorted, twisted, you know, big honky nose, so on and so forth. Okay, that looks a lot more like those photos that we saw than that does. This face here, this man, doesn't look anything like these. And I'm not so sure that this sculpture here, whoever this man was actually done by Borglum either, to be honest with you. Now, this is supposed to be one of the models that he constructed. I don't know if this particular model is even still in existence, because they said he had multiple studios that he was working on these scale models from. You see the size of this thing? I don't care what he made this out of. Based on the size of this alone would have taken extraordinary amounts of time. Now, here's what's really... This is the part that's the real mind screw. Is that these guys here, what you're seeing here, looks like a very clever blending between the actual faces that are on that mountain and the popular paintings or photographs that we have of these men. But these here, again, looks like his rough style. He has a very rough looking style. All of his edges are rough. The faces are rough. They don't, in my opinion, even look like the faces that are up there. And they say
Yeah,
he
look
used...
at Jefferson.
Yeah, it doesn't
Look at Jefferson's. Yeah.
It doesn't look anything like that Jefferson there. It doesn't look like that. But, you know, the thing is, they say he used this revolutionary, beautiful, like, technique where he would actually put a compass-like axis on the top and use a plumb bob on the they say it was like a 1/12 scale, and then other ones might be a different scale. And that's how he got his perfect scales and everything. Well, if that's the case, then these certainly couldn't have been the models. These certainly couldn't have been the models if he was getting this perfect scale. That hair isn't even the same on there. So what was this? I don't know. Because they make these excuses up. He made a number of different models. Those would have taken a long time just to make those. Okay, here's another one they say that he made. They said this is one of the ones that went bad. I don't know why he has one of these swing arms, these compass swing arms on that one, and that big. That's really stupid. I don't know, maybe to sell us the idea that that's what he used, was this brilliant technique of this compass style swing arm with a plumb bob. This is where they're trying to convince us that there was a face on the other side of Washington and it had to get exploded and all this. Let's see. And a lot of these I can't get in high res, large. Probably the same one from a different angle. I just can't believe he made all of these and then he had time to make that mountain. That's pretty hard to believe, I'll tell you. But this right here, even though it's pixely, it's going to give you a good idea of, because here's what I think happened. I think he was hired to make these models. And he was hired to blend these faces with the faces of these paintings. Oh, finally it closes on me. I've been trying to close that window forever. With the faces of those paintings that I showed you. That's what he was hired to do. Now this is supposed to be a Gutzon Borglum sculpture of Abraham Lincoln right here. They call this guy, like, I forget, they call him like Copper Nose or something because of the shiny copper on the nose here, or bronze. But look at this face. Look at that face. And look at the roughness. Again, there's no sharp detail in his work. It's all very rough. Okay, we've got the contorted face. Sorry. And look at that face. That ain't the same face. That ain't the same face. That ain't the same face. Look at that face. That ain't the same face.
So
that ain't the same sculpture. Sculptor. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to ask, and I don't necessarily know the answer or even want it answered at this point, but those sculptures were already there. Could they have already been there?
Absolutely.
And how long,
Well, we don't know, because the thing is, they estimate that these sculptures, the Mount Rushmore, is eroding at the rate of about 1/100th of an inch every 10,000 years. So you can't make anything of that. 1/100th of an inch every 10,000 years. What are you supposed to do with that? So, listen, I'm going to, at this point, we're just about halfway through that presentation. We can knock this off at this point. We can pick up again next time. Hopefully, our other friends will join us on the next one. But either way, we've had a good time. I'm going to look at a few of these chats and see if we have anything in here that that looks like a question or something that I can address if I need to. Let's see. I do want to thank, hey guys, just throw out some names here. Want to thank everybody who showed up. Woody's Way, Watto, Be Still, Triple P, Bill Burns, Anonymous User. Is that actually a name? Anyways, Donald Draper, and JTK's World, Polygon. Let's see. Get to some, see if we've got any comments here to address. Hey, Donald Draper says that Borglum was a worshipful master of a New York lodge. Donald Draper says Borglum was a worshipful master of a New York lodge. That would not surprise me. I haven't looked into Borglum's affiliation with anything like the Masons or the Oddfellows or anything like that. Absolutely would not surprise me. You know, I've addressed this a few times in the past, like the distant past. These books that you see so many people, hear so many people that I think are shills that are still trying to withhold the actual truth about the Masons and Oddfellows and stuff from you. They'll point to books like Manly P. Hall's books on the Masons, or Albert Pike's books on the Masons, or others who will describe that Masonry's greatest craft and art and point to and all of that stuff is the worship of Lucifer and all that. I don't believe that for a second. Don't buy that for a second, people. There's no way guys like Albert Pike and Manly P. Hall and what's his name? He's prolific writer on it. Waits, A.E. Waite. They're not going to reveal the actual secrets of Masonry. Are you insane? How do we let these people keep getting away with this when they quote like from Pike, who says that it's all about, you know, the great architect Satan and worshiping Satan? It has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with keeping the secrets of what the world was just a few short centuries ago, and who's running it, and the nature of it concerning sciences, concerning geographies, concerning literature, concerning the Bible, concerning peoples, tribes, politics, all of that. These are the people who actually keep guard over those secrets. They don't give a fuck about any Satan or anything like that. They care about keeping themselves and their overlords, their tribes, their kinsmen, their people in power. That's what they care about. Okay? That's what it comes down to, because that's what it's all about for them. They live very, very good, very elaborate, very healthy, oftentimes, joyous existences on our backs. And not just ours. I'm not just thinking of us or people like me. Everybody's. Everybody's. The Aboriginal peoples of the world, they live on their backs. Poor white trash in the world, they live on their backs. The blue-collar working man who believes that it's Republicans versus the Democrats, they live on their backs. And power is intoxicating. It's absolutely intoxicating. You talk to anyone who has been in any kind of a power position. School teacher, I taught music for a long time, guitar and bass. And I had many students. My students really liked me. They looked up to me. They listened to me. Almost anything, I would say. Their parents oftentimes did, because I taught them. I was very good. Power is an intoxicating thing. It's one of the reasons why performing musicians miss the stage, and because they have such power. It's intoxicating. These people will never let their power go, and they will tell us any lie they want to, and they'll absolutely justify it by, if we don't, these people will overrun us. They'll take away our power, and maybe they will do away with us and our kind, our family, our tribes, whatever. those are probably the reasons that they use. And there might have been incidents that led up to all of the things that they've done since about the late 1700s. But that's a good note. That is a good note, Donald Draper. I'm actually going to make a note of that. I'm going to look into that to see if he was, in fact, a worshipful master or had something to do with the Masons or another secret society. It's the Sicilian crease, says Bill Burns. That's interesting. I've seen a lot of people with that. I mean, I've got, like, doesn't everybody have a little, like a little bit? I think everybody has a little bit, but then there are those that have the very, very clear, very distinct, and it's a genetic feature. It's something that they're going to pass on to their kids, or that was passed on from their parents. I always look at genetic markers because they're meaningful. Lincoln's Polygon, Lincoln's funerary arch had a 6-pointed star atop it. Is that right? Photographed. It was weird to see that. Is that right? Okay, that's something to keep in mind as well. If that's Abraham Lincoln, who knows who that guy was, Bill Burns said that they told him in the 1970s that Lincoln changed when he was in school. Lincoln changed so much because the weight on his shoulders from being president aged him quickly. They tell us some crazy stuff, don't they? Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, the smaller statues should be smoother, Bill, and the larger ones actually should be rougher. And those large ones are just amazing. I mean, think of it like a photograph. Let's say you have a photograph that's in 90 DPI, and you put it on a screen, like mine, 12 whatever by 10, 16 or 12. You put it on any screen and you set it for actual size. And you look at it in actual size, and then you start blowing it up. It's going to get more and more and more and more pixelated, more and more and more and more rough. That same principle, it's not a photograph, it's not a digital photograph, but that same principle applies. His smaller sculptures should have actually been a lot more detailed and smooth than this giant sculpture. And I have seen footage at as close as you can get to these faces, and they are immaculate. They have a certain amount of roughness because they fill them in with this special type of filler that they talk about, which I'll try to bring up actually next time. But even with filling in all these cracks that they've done and everything, the faces, they're still immaculate close up. It's like that for Bill said again. Bill Burns said that they say that Lincoln's nose is all bright, shiny on that one statue because people rub it for good luck. It must be like the Blarney Stone. Okay, so check one other thing. I'm taking a look here over at the Facebook. Oh, here we go. Aiden actually provided a link in the chat for Facebook. It's Borglum Dickinson's Masonic Lodge 32, and I'll write that link down and I'll look into it